Hey, Lioness, welcome to the show, Lioness Conversations, where we help women be brave, to lead with confidence and joy, and to find your path to the most meaningful work of your life. I'm your host, Jen Porter, leadership and empowerment coach for ambitious and heart centered women who are ready to change the world. If you want to find out more about the Lioness community and maybe you want to nominate a lioness for this podcast, you can find that information out at my website, jenportercoach.com. Our guest today is Krista Tan, the visionary co-founder of Talent Collective. Krista has been building a thriving global community that empowers and connects women in talent acquisition. Talent Collective is on a mission to advance career and recruiting networks through a robust mentorship program, dynamic peer groups, a dedicated TA job board, and invaluable professional development like thought leader webinars. This is more than an organization. It's a movement building the future of female leadership and talent acquisition. Krista, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Jen. Appreciate you having me on today.
I'm so excited. So we got introduced through really William Tencup.
Yes, that's
because
right.
of our conversations about podcasting, and then it turns out we have a mutual friend, Mindy Honcoop.
That's
So
right.
amazing.
Yes.
And we
Yeah.
had a great conversation. I was excited. Once we talked about everything that you're doing, I really wanted to have you on here to share more broadly about this community that you've developed. So tell us a little bit about, your heart behind this. What are you focused on right now with Talent Collective?
Yeah, thank you. So Talent Collective is a membership community, just like you mentioned, for women and those who identify as women in the recruiting space. So about 2 years ago, my co-founder and I were having a lot of conversations about just the state of the recruiting industry, the future of the recruiting industry. Especially 2 years ago, we were in kind of this moment of crisis where AI was just coming to the forefront of being discussed, and how is this going to change our roles as TA professionals? But then also there were tons and tons of layoffs in the recruiting industry. Not as much so today, but it still persists, and I think the roles haven't really come back like we expected them to. And so we started really coming together, saying, one, we want to talk about this and these themes with other people in our industry, but how can we support other women, right? How can we help empower them? We're this idea of like the whole is better than, any of us individually out there solo by ourselves. A lot of people are working from home, they're lonely, there isn't a lot of connection happening nowadays. So how can we support this community, and how can we bring women together to be talking about these things? So that's kind of how Talent Collective came to be. And here we are 2 years in. It's been a very wild ride, and super, super fun growing the community.
I mean, how did you make that leap from conception, like desire, you recognize a need, to actually starting something?
Yeah. Great question. And I will say that this idea actually came years ago.
Okay.
So back, I want to say maybe five plus years ago, I started seeing Chief everywhere. And I think I even applied to be a Chief member. And they responded by saying, oh, we have, thousands of people on our wait list. And it was kind of like, good luck, right?
Wow.
And I remember at the time going to my CEO and saying, like, man, we need to do something for like this for talent acquisition women. So fast forward, then I was actually talking about doing something about it a couple of years ago. And we had all of these ideas and a lot of really big ideas. I was in a full-time job at the role. I was head of people at a tech startup. And knowing with a full-time job that, this would probably just be kind of a passion project on the side that we did. So we just looked at each other and we said, let's just rip the Band-Aid off. Let's choose a date and time, and plan an event in San Francisco, which is where we live, and invite every woman in recruiting that we know and ask them to invite all of their friends. So that's really how it started. We just chose a date. We had a big launch event in San Francisco, and we started small. We thought initially that we would have maybe 1 to 2 in-person events in the Bay Area per quarter. We thought we'd start off with some mastermind peer groups where we'd get women together virtually and have them support one another on calls. And then, maybe we'd have like a virtual workshop every month. So that's really where we started. Very quickly, we saw a huge demand and tons of women finding out about our group and actually coming to us saying, how can we get involved? Like I live in New York, or I live here, or I live there, and really wanting to be a part of it. So I ended up quitting my day job, and it was like 2 months in, and I was like, this is a thing. Like there's demand for this. There's a need for it. We're actually making an impact on the women that we're already touching. And so ended up quitting my day job. And that's really when I went full, all in on growing the community and running it.
Amazing. So what was it about? I think what the, this podcast is about being brave. And that was a significantly brave move that you made. And I want to kind of dig into that a little bit, because it's one thing to say, and then I just quit my day job and now I'm doing this thing. And definitely I see the evolution. But what was going through your mind when you were making that decision about making that leap?
Yeah. There's a bigger context to all of this as well. So that year, so it was 2023, and we started Talent Collective in June. In April of that year, March or April of that year, I actually separated from my husband. And so now I was in a new house, essentially like my kid, I have 3 young children. They were 3, 5, and 7 or 8, or 7 or 8 at the time. So I was already going through a lot of change in my life. I'm kind of an all or nothing kind of person, as you can imagine. So left my husband, bought a new house, started Talent Collective all within a matter of months. And let me tell you, it was freeing. There were parts of it that were absolutely freeing. And then there were parts of it that were absolutely terrifying and overwhelming. And once we started Talent Collective, I started seeing the impact we were making, I just knew it was right. Like I went with my gut. It was a gut feeling and I went with it, even though, yes, it was super scary, and especially financially, to leave a full-time position when I'm going through a divorce, like so much unknown. I think the bravery piece of it, one was I probably would have never done this, meaning started Talent Collective, if I had been alone. So my co-founder is someone that I've known for 15, 20 years. We actually went to grad school together. I know her very well. We're friends, but we've also been coworkers. So I think the bravery was knowing who I was in partnership with and knowing that she and I could do this together. And yeah, just kind of going with my gut on it, I guess. There's probably a lot more to share, but that's it in a nutshell.
It's when you said freeing, that was not the word I thought you were going to choose, but
Okay.
it makes sense that it was both freeing but also terrifying.
Yes.
And I think most women who hold a mission inside of them, the thing that holds us back is the financial piece.
Yes.
Risk doesn't, it's like, yes, there's a lot of risk involved, but usually what people are talking about is money.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
So how did you think through that? I mean, yes, it was, and then I want to get to trusting yourself, because there's something really important in there. But how were you thinking about the financial pieces at that point, especially since you were really building a new life for yourself and your kids?
Yes. Yeah. Here's, I guess, what I'll say about that. I was at a recruiting firm for 13 years. That's where I started my recruiting career, and was very, very fortunate to have just an amazingly successful tenure there. very well paid. I, was able to make and save a lot of money while I was there. So I did have a financial cushion.
Yeah.
That said, in a divorce in California, it's 50-50, right? So I knew like half of everything I had was basically going away. But knowing that I had at least some kind of financial cushion, knowing that, the house I bought, I was able to put down a lot in equity, right? Like a lot of my loan wasn't too crazy. So living expenses aren't too crazy. But, even today, now after 2 years of having started Talent Collective, we bootstrapped it, right? We have essentially been living off of our savings, and it's been a very financially risky
Mhm.
decision. And there's a reason that a lot of people say new businesses fail is because, you kind of get into these moments of like, wow, like, am I really doing this? And am I really like going through all of my savings? I think what still helps me like have stability in this moment is knowing like I have a backup plan, right? So like I have a 401k. If God forbid I need to cash out on that, I can cash out, right?
Yeah.
Um Also, you mentioned trusting yourself, and I'm sure we'll go down that road a little bit more, but I've been fortunate, but also like known when I'm passionate about something and I care about something, I'm going to succeed at it. And
Yeah.
I've proven myself that I've been able to do that. So why would this be any different, right?
Mhm.
But yeah, the financial piece definitely very scary and still is today. 2 years
Yeah.
later, it's
Yeah.
it's still a thing.
Yeah. And you and your co-founder sort of built out the business model. So you knew what the hope was, what the idea was for the revenue.
We did, yes. So thank you for bringing that up. That was definitely a piece that I missed. We pivoted really quickly once we
Okay.
got into the business because I think we overestimated how many people would pay for a membership like this, right? And we also were trying to figure out our pricing. Like, what is a membership worth to people? How much would they pay for this? Also, calling out that this is a really rough job market for TA professionals. A
Mhm.
lot of the people that we are quote unquote selling into for our membership are out of work right now. So,
Mm.
people that
Mhm.
are out of work, this is seen as like an extra, right? An
Yeah.
extra expense. When you're trying to put food on the table for your family or keep, the lights on, like you're not going to pay for a networking group, right?
Yeah.
So we've done a lot of pivoting on pricing. We also, so I mentioned the business model. So day one, our business model was the memberships, right? So like
Mhm.
women paying for the membership. And we quickly realized, okay, this is not going to scale quickly enough.
Okay.
We're never going to be able to pay ourselves if we continue with
Yeah.
this model. And so quickly we realized, oh, all of these events that we're hosting could be sponsored by a company that wants to get in front of a room of TA professionals, right? The people selling into TA, right? So a lot of like recruiting technology companies, et cetera. So we started basically going after sponsors, right?
Yeah.
So, how can we get companies to sponsor the events that we're running? So, now that's basically our two business lines. And with those two combined, I feel like we have a really healthy business model, like you mentioned.
Yeah, it sounds like you had some things in place, some of which were backup plans, right? But it's
Mhm.
nice to have that cushion just in case, it doesn't work out. But you also had not only the financial backup plan, but also the job backup plan,
Yeah.
that, you have a skill set that's really in
Yes.
demand, that's
Yes.
valuable. You have a proven track record. And so there's other things that you could fall back on if you needed
Mhm.
to. So I think, so the reason I'm asking those things is because a lot of the women that are listening
Mhm.
are mission minded, and they have a dream, but it feels impossible. It's like,
Mm.
I could never do that because, a lot of these women are breadwinners for their families.
Yes.
And
Yep.
so these are weighty decisions.
Yes.
This isn't like, oh, let me try something new, right?
Yep.
But you were really thoughtful about, what are your circumstances and how can you support yourself and your family, but also, what is the business model? And then, like you said, to pivot
Mhm.
when you realized, oh, there's actually a different way,
Mhm.
to bring in some revenue, which is really smart.
Yep.
You talked a lot about impact. What are you seeing as the impact that Talent Collective is having?
Yeah, a few things. So one, I mentioned like the loneliness that can
Yeah.
come with working from home, being isolated, obviously post COVID. I think there was a lot of that. And still, even today, like, I think a lot of people are seeking out those relationships, whether it's in person or over Zoom. I mean, I think a lot of people are trying to get away from Zoom now, but some maybe in locations that are, not well suited for any of our in-person events. So the connection piece is really, really huge within our community. We have like peer mastermind groups and a mentorship program so that women, regardless of their location, can connect with other women in the
Mhm.
industry. And so, for example, we have a peer group that's for heads of talent that are basically a team of one, right? So they don't
Sure.
have colleagues to go to ask all of these questions to. They don't have anyone to say, like, am I doing this right? Or am I on the right track? Or,
Right.
oh, I'm having this issue with, a hiring manager or my boss. Like, how would you handle this? So that peer group really, provides a lot of support to other women. It's almost like an
Mhm.
extended team for them. Um,
Interesting.
mhm.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say the connection piece, and which is then a long term relationship that gets built, right? Like these women are now have friends for life, which has been really really neat to see. And then I would say a second to that are like outcomes that are more tangible, I would say, like women getting a new position through a connection they made at Talent Collective. So they either, see something posted in, we have like a job board. So they might see something posted and apply and get the job, or just get connected through one another person. So jobs are coming out of it. And we have a lot of entrepreneurs in our group as well. So they're
Mhm.
new business owners. And so some partnerships. So, like, I'm running this search, and my client gave me a creative role, like a design role. I have no idea how to recruit for a
Yeah.
designer. Can someone help me? And, they might do like a split fee or something like that. So,
Yeah.
we've seen a lot of really great outcomes from and results and impact.
I mean, huge value. I'm thinking back to the women who may be laid off right now,
Hmm.
and having to make those tough decisions about what do they invest in and what do they hold off on. The value's there,
Yep.
right? It's so clear, but it's probably hard to make those investments all the time. But it would benefit them so much, especially the job board and the
Yes.
networking, and
Yes.
having those relationships, because that is, I mean, it's still how people get jobs,
Yes.
is through relationships, believe it or not.
Yep. And I think even more so now, honestly, like
Yeah.
I'm seeing this shift with AI and with
Yeah.
candidates using AI to mass apply.
Yes.
So then the recruiters are getting on paper what looks like even more perfectly qualified candidates. So it's even harder for recruiters to do their job well. So I'm seeing now even more people really relying on those personal connections and networks
Mm.
to find their next opportunity and to get in front of the recruiter on the role.
Yeah.
It's a very interesting and tricky time to be job searching for sure.
Well, that's the other thing that I'm thinking about, is that a benefit can be just understanding the trends that are happening in the
Yes.
marketplace.
Yep.
And
Yes.
recently things have changed so much so fast.
Yes. Yep.
and
And
to
we'll
be
continue to. Yeah. We do a
yeah.
lot of like workshops and fireside chats where we bring in thought leaders to talk about all of these things as well. So yeah, that was something I was going to mention and didn't, but the kind of best practices, the trends, like all of those things we're talking about in our community as well.
So, I was in talent acquisition for, I guess, about 20 years.
Yeah.
I remember how the pressure cooker that it could be. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
because there's the demands are there, the
Yep.
needs, like they need somebody yesterday,
Yep.
and doing all the work, things don't always work well with the making those connections of, human to need. And
Right.
so
Right.
uh, I can I didn't have something like that when I was
Mm-hmm.
in the world of recruiting, and so I can imagine how important that would have been to be
Yeah.
connected with those that could help. And especially you get a new job, you have no idea, like you've
Yep.
never done anything like this before, you don't even know the questions to ask yet,
Yep.
and so to have that group of people would be huge.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit more about the trusting self, because
Mhm.
that's a theme. It's a theme in my coaching work. I
Mhm.
think so many of us women need to develop that muscle of trusting ourselves, because sometimes it's never been there, I find,
Mhm.
and in other cases it's there. It just needs
Mhm.
to be kind of brought back to life, because a lot of self doubt can come in. And it's interesting that I work with a lot of women who, they may have a couple decades of experience, and yet there's something that's happened where their confidence has taken a hit.
Mm.
And it's usually like you could point to, one or two things that have really been like a dagger to their self
Right.
confidence.
Right.
And so trusting self is like this rediscovery, relearning
Yep.
of how to find the wisdom within ourselves and be able to stand firm on that and
Mhm.
take risks from that place. So what's that been like for you? Has trusting yourself, has that always been a part of
Mm.
your life? You've like even as a child?
Good question. I feel like my answer is yes and no. I've always been pretty confident in my abilities,
Mhm.
but there have definitely been things I've struggled with regards to confidence and identity. Um, I would say one of the most impactful things in my late 20s or so was actually working with a life coach.
Okay.
And it had less to do with my professional capabilities, and more to do with like just kind of like some mind body awareness, like even like body image stuff and eating and food and all of these themes that I really struggled with. And, it working with that life coach, it really helped me to, I think, get out of my head and more into my body.
Yeah.
So, and it's still something I really struggle with today. Like, I think I had completely disassociated from my body in a lot of ways. And this was probably growing up. And I'm sure there's some childhood traumas in there in some, in a bunch of different ways. But like it was a concept that I never had even known about or thought about. But like I had no idea what was going on inside my body and how to listen to those cues, right? Like, oh, my heart rate is faster now, or I'm, you know, nervous, or I'm really hot right now. Like all of these things that like I just completely like shut off from my body and was really living in my head all of the time. So I think that process of meeting with a life coach and doing that kind of like self exploration really helped me in my then 30s and now 40s to be more present and at one with myself. And that includes my body and what's going
Yes.
on with me physiologically and listening to those things. And even, now I try to meditate a couple of times a week. And I constantly have to kind of bring myself back into my body to go like, okay, what's actually going on with me right now? So yeah, so I think that's probably my biggest learning with regards to trusting myself and just even knowing and understanding what's going on in my body.
So deep what you're talking about. So, there's a saying that we live from here up, like we
Yes.
experience the world from here up, and where many of us, I don't know if it's, I haven't really thought about globally, but US certainly
Yep.
is this disconnection from our bodies
Yes.
in really weird, wacky ways. I don't know how all that happens. Somebody does. But we have to rediscover how to integrate and connect with our bodies. It's just a
Yes.
really weird thing that we have to, it's like learning how to breathe. It's like, why do we not know this? But
Totally.
I was just talking with a friend about this, that she asked me how do I make, I'm a processor. Like I reflect on things. My deep thinking comes over time. And she said, how do you do it when you have to make a quick decision? Like there's a
Mm.
risk or a decision in front of you and you have to make like a game time decision right away. And I said, you know what? I am listening to my body in those
Yes.
cases. I'm tapping into what am I feeling? Usually in my gut area,
Mhm.
am I feeling a sense of peace,
Yes.
or maybe butterflies,
Mhm.
or am I feeling a constriction,
Yeah.
like I'm sort of closing in on myself,
Yes.
and it's signaling I'm in danger, or
Mhm.
this is not good,
Yes.
stay away, steer
Yep.
clear of this. So in those moments, that's what I'm doing, is connecting my brain with my body
Mhm.
and making the best decision. And we talked also about trusting self, that when we do that over the course of time, then we're able to have a track record
Yep.
of, oh, that went well. We can reflect back after the decision's made and say, you know what, that actually went well. That was the right
Mhm.
call. And the
Mhm.
more we do that, the more we learn
Yeah.
and can do that more easily
Yep.
without a ton of stress. Just like I trust
Mhm.
myself.
Mhm.
I can trust myself.
Mhm. Yeah, that's, I think, a perfect way to say it, and exactly what I've experienced as well. Um, like I said, I have to remind myself to come back to a lot of those principles, and even sometimes I'll go back and like look through emails that I had with my coach of like, she would send me different exercises to do, and sometimes when I'm feeling just really like uncentered or just struggling and not lost and not knowing what to do with a certain topic, or just in general, sometimes like I just have an unsettling feeling and I don't even know why, like what is going on. Sometimes I'll pull some of those exercises back out, and it's just simple things that you might take for granted, like journaling, right? Like journaling, like doing that for every day for a week, or like I said, meditating and trying to, really quiet my mind. And sometimes it's just going back to some of those basics can really help with that, and then it kind of resets me and I go, okay, I know what I'm doing, or okay,
Yeah.
I like feel better about whatever that uncertainty was.
It's so true. And so journaling, what I find, I love that some of those tools are timeless. Like they're
Yeah.
still helping you. But with what I have found with journaling is that it actually gets things out that are spinning and
Yes.
creating anxiety in our mind. And once I put it on paper, it loses power,
Yep.
because instead of it swirling and spinning and
Yes.
feeling really, really big, if I put it on paper, then suddenly it feels more manageable,
Hmm.
or at
Yes.
least I'm able to crystallize, this is what I need to solve for.
Yep.
Okay,
Yes.
I can solve for this.
Yep.
What do I need? Who do I need to reach out to? Like it's just a method that gets it out of that anxiety producing energy
Hmm.
inside and
Hmm.
puts it in a format that actually just reshapes it.
Yeah. One of the tools that I use over and over again is there have been periods of time at different times in my life that I've struggled to sleep well, right? It's either I can't fall asleep or I wake up in the middle of the night and then I have a million things going on in my head and I
Yeah.
just can't quiet my brain down. And it's exactly that. It's writing down, it might be a to-do list, it might be my worries, whatever the case may be, and just like, taking out my phone and making a note or sending myself an email just to remember to do these things tomorrow. Or I used to have a pen and paper beside my bed to do it.
Mhm.
And just getting it out of my head 9 times out of 10 would do the trick. Right. Um, so I think that's just an incredibly powerful tool that
Simple.
e- everyone could use.
Yes. Yes. Um, what do you desire for the women who are in your community? If you could um, sort of have the ideal scenario of how they're flourishing and benefiting, and um, if they're fully leveraging what it is
Mhm.
that's available to them, what would that be?
Yeah. Yeah, you brought up a couple of things in there that made me think about a lot of the receiving that women do in our community has a there's a direct correlation with how much they're giving to the community, right? So the give and receive. There are people that I meet that, sometimes we talk to our members before they join and sometimes we don't, but a couple of people in particular that I've talked to before they joined that were very much so like, well, I don't want to join unless I know I'm going to be able to get a job from this, or I don't want to join unless I'm going to receive XYZ. And, those types of members end up not being ideal community members because I think just like in life, right? So like just to have this expectation that I'm going to get something and that like I'm a consumer of this um is I don't think really the best approach, right? Like if you come in with an open heart and you come in wanting to support other women and give back into other women's lives, like naturally you're just going to receive from that. But then I think you come with like an energy that people are more willing to and open to wanting to give to you, right?
Yeah.
Um, so that's kind of one of the first things I think about is like joining with the intention of giving, and what you put in is what you're going to get out of it. The second thing I think of is what I find really unfortunate is that especially when women come in, they already have a full-time job, like especially if they're internal recruiters or maybe a head of talent internally, they are so busy, right? They're usually coming in and they don't have time to attend the groups or attend the workshops. Um, and unfortunately, then, you're really not receiving the benefits of the community.
Right.
And we hear so often that, you know, I was too busy when I had my full-time job to engage and to network and to, be a part of the community. And now that I don't have, like maybe I got laid off or, left my company, I wish I would have been investing in this, right? I hear that just so often. So what I really hope for is that women would make the time, right? Make the
Hmm.
time to invest in, maybe it's just one of our peer groups and it's once a month, an hour, right? Like that seems very manageable
Hmm.
from a time perspective. And I think that there's just a really big payoff in the long run.
Yeah. Yeah, there's so much there about what we choose to create space for and how empowered we feel
Hmm.
about our schedule. Um, I'm also thinking about, back in 2009, I got laid off from Microsoft.
Mm.
And I remember because Microsoft was such a large organization, all of the relationships that I had formed because I'd moved to Seattle for the job was within this huge enterprise
Yeah.
of Microsoft. And so then there are no jobs available in within the company.
Yep.
All HR and recruiting just was like not happening.
Yep.
And I found myself really disconnected. I thought I was connected.
Right.
It felt like I was connected, but I had no relationships, intentional, professional, relationships outside of the
Yep.
company. And I swore to myself I would never let that happen again,
Yes. Yep.
because we're vulnerable when something like that happens, and anything can happen, right? Where there's really not job security in this day
Anywhere.
and
Yep.
age. And
Right.
so the value of having those relationships, so that if and when something happens, you've already got this
Yep.
network that you can just immediately reach out to. You're known, and people can support in so many different ways. And because
Mhm.
there's a relationship, they're going to give their time.
Mhm.
And
Yep.
it's what you're talking about too, is what I call the cycle of generosity.
Mm.
It's where, we're in this constant state of giving and receiving, because
Yep.
we have a lot to offer, but we also
Yes.
have a lot of needs.
Yep.
And to be in that place of showing up in that way, always willing to receive what is available, but also giving freely, because usually
Mhm.
when the ways that we're giving come quite naturally to us.
Right.
So it's pretty effortless.
Yes, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, the topic of, being in a company and kind of just getting really siloed into your network there, that exact same thing happened to me. The company I mentioned, it was a small boutique staffing agency, so it wasn't a large organization by any means. But I was there for 13 years, and really the only network that I had when I left was former colleagues, right?
Mhm.
People that had
Mhm.
left and now are at different companies. But I was just so in my little bubble there. And I find that that's definitely a theme that we hear a lot of, with like, I'm siloed within my own company. I don't know what's going on with the broader TA community and trends, like best practices, all of those things. But then it ties into the network too,
Mhm.
and lack of relationships outside of it, right?
Mhm.
And not having it be a transactional thing, right? Like you want an actual real relationship with the people
Yeah.
that you're reaching out to for help once you do have a need, right? So yeah, a community like Talent Collective, or any membership community that someone joins, it doesn't have to be in recruiting,
Mhm.
can really help facilitate that and help you build those connections.
So how did you handle that situation when, after 13 years, you're looking for something else?
Yeah. Well, luckily I was able to go to all of those people that, I had previously worked with. And another thing that I did, was asking, well, so one, and I always say this to people, but like, try to hop on a call with that person, right? If you're going to reach out and
Yeah.
say, hey, I'm looking for a new job, like, if you just ping them on LinkedIn or shoot them a text or email, the likelihood of them remembering that when they hear of something is pretty slim to none,
Right.
especially as time goes by. So try to actually hop on a call with them so that they remember the conversation. They have more context on what you're looking for and kind of the bigger picture. And you can just say, and what I would do is, hey, I'm in a career pivot. Like, would you be willing to hop on a call with me and tell me what you're seeing in the market, right? Like, that's a really easy one. You're not asking for something from them in particular, like them specifically, but you're
Right.
more asking for like trends, the market, what's going on out there, what are they seeing?
Mhm.
And then I will always ask them, who else should I talk to,
Yeah.
right? Like that's another big one is, okay, we've had this conversation, but do you have any suggestions on anyone you know that might be able to help with my search? And so getting warm introductions, or, being able to just reach out to someone and say, so and so suggested I reach out to you,
Mhm.
right? So that's kind of how I was able to snowball the effect of my job search after 13 years, is
Yeah.
asking for referrals, right?
Yes. That's such great advice to get the call with
Hmm.
somebody, because I am thinking about a couple of things. Number one, that's a little bit of a lost art
Yes.
because we're so used to texting or pinging, right? But I'm also thinking about how the brain works. And the brain can only hold on to so many notifications,
100%.
and yet a conversation is very human to human.
Yep.
We see each other more clearly, we feel each other. We have a chance to, feedback what we're hearing them say, so that we understand more fully, and we can ask the follow-up questions of how can I help you,
Mhm.
and How are you
Yep.
thinking through this? So important.
Hmm.
And the other
Yep.
thing, when I was going through my job search, what I found is that every time I had a coffee date with somebody, I was asking for their time in that way. And I always left every conversation feeling more encouraged.
Hmm.
And I felt and knew that I had an advocate, another advocate who was going to be on my side,
Hmm.
helping me every time.
Yep.
So I always encourage people to do that in a search, because it's, even if they don't end up being the person that's going to get you the job,
Right.
it's just, you're building like an army of people around you
Yes.
that can
Yep.
help. And that
Yep.
is so encouraging to the human spirit when
Hmm.
we're in a difficult situation, which it is really scary when we're out
Yes.
of a job. That's
Yep.
a really hard hit that we can take, especially if we're in that place of not getting the jobs that we're applying for.
Yep.
And, it
Yeah, and
starts like,
just
hey,
sending your resume, into the abyss of the thousands of other resumes that have been sent. Yeah.
yeah,
That human connection, I mean, it just, speaks to our just need to connect with
totally.
people, right?
Yes.
And that feeling of encouragement in a tough time is a real thing.
Yeah. Yeah. What do you see for the future of Talent Collective? What are your other dreams around this beautiful community?
Yeah. Um, I mean, we've talked a lot about like right now what we have is working. Like we
Mhm.
have a really great model. Um, there's things that we can of course improve and tweak and get better. Um, but to just keep adding on more programs or services doesn't really, and like the like growth, right? Like everyone always says growth, 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 growth. Like those things don't seem super authentic to us because like I mentioned, what we have going on right now is working and it's working really well. And so I almost hesitate to say like, oh, we want to add a bunch of new things.
Yeah.
So I think it's like, at least for the foreseeable future, it's, if it's not broke, don't fix it, right? Like keeping what we have. Yes, growing the community, but like very intentional growth with the right kind of people being,
Mhm.
coming into the community. We don't want to just grow just for the sake of numbers. We really want members who are engaged and, as I mentioned earlier, giving back, because that's really how other members are going to get an impact on it. So,
Mhm.
kind of feel like what we have working is working, and I
Yeah.
think one area is that is just naturally happening without us really even trying is um, the physical locations that we host in-person events in.
Mhm.
We have, I think, 18 different locations now where we have members that are in those locations and running events on behalf of Talent Collective. So naturally, I think as new women hear about the community and get involved, and there's not a local chapter there, there's women that start to raise their hand and go like, "Hey, I want this in my town," right?
Yes.
So that will, I think, continue to happen, and even globally. Like we did have an event in London. In May, and we
Okay.
just happened to be there, and we had a partner that wanted to sponsor an
Good.
event. But I think we could continue to see, like in Europe, we have some members, maybe some
Mhm.
traction there. So yeah, we'll see. Yeah, we're open to new ideas, but I think what we have going right now is working.
And are those your community leaders that are on your website, the ones that are in these different regions and hosting
Yes.
some of these events?
Yes, exactly. So it's essentially kind of I guess a volunteer position, right? They have risen, raised their hand to say like, I would love to host, community events in my local town. And they host at minimum one event per quarter,
Okay.
which can be super low lift. They might be just coordinating a happy hour or a coffee meetup or something like that, anywhere to larger events that could be, like a fireside chat event with speakers and a
Mhm.
sponsor. So, yeah, those are the community leaders that we have.
There's a lot of them. It's
Yeah.
amazing, amazing. So if someone's listening and they want to learn more about Talent Collective, how do they find out more about you and what's offered? But also, what do you recommend as they explore it?
Yeah. Well, you can go to, any of our social media. We obviously have a LinkedIn presence, just searching Talent Collective. Our website has a ton of information. It's talentcollectiveco.com. And those are two great ways to just start researching. You can reach out to me on LinkedIn. We do have a Q&A session, a question and answer
Okay.
session about our membership every Tuesday at 10 a.m. Pacific time. One of our community members leads that. Her name is Candace. And so that's a really great place to learn more before you sign up. We do have an application process as well, so you can just apply to get more information. So there's a lot of ways to learn more. We also keep an eye on our LinkedIn page because we have tons of events going on. We have a newsletter that you can be kept in the loop of our events
Okay.
onto, even if you're not interested in membership but want to attend some of our events in one of our local chapters. You can do that without being a member.
And I'm assuming membership could, and individuals obviously pay for that, but their company could sponsor them as well to be part of it, right?
Definitely. Yeah. We have a lot of our members that are employed that have their, maybe it's a learning and development stipend or something like that. So their company covers it. We also have a letter that I can send you that has some verbiage on what are the benefits of this community and how would they make you do your job better, right? Because that's ultimately what the company wants to know
Totally.
is there going to be an ROI on this expense?
Yeah.
So I have that I can send to anyone who might be interested.
Amazing. So anybody in talent acquisition, recruiting, check this out because being a part of the collective is, I mean, like you said, we're better together
Mhm.
than individually and isolated. And I do know from experience, it could be very stressful to be in these jobs when you're trying to recruit humans for these, jobs that are often they're written to be um, more than realistic. It's
Yeah.
like, okay, let me go find the person that has all these disparate
Right.
characteristics
Right.
and wants this job for this pay. So it could be really challenging and to be to be held in a community where other people are experiencing those same challenges and have made it through and can add um, not just value but mentorship
Mhm.
for that, I think would be incredibly valuable. So check out talentcollectiveco.com and Krista Tan on LinkedIn. I just love what you're doing. I think it's an amazing community, and I just love the brave steps that you've taken to get there.
Thanks, Jen. I appreciate that.
It's very inspiring. All right, until the next episode, the lioness in me sees the lioness in you.